Hello, um, hello everyone. Welcome to this webinar where we're going to be exploring careers in workplace and facilities management. Special thanks to the serving members. We really appreciate the time that you're taking out. We know that everyone's very busy and your time is very valuable. But like I say, we're going to be exploring the opportunities available to you guys when you've finished your transition and the huge crossover there is between workplace facility management and the military. I hope this webinar will give you a bit of an idea of the opportunities available to you and the different roles available in this diverse sector. A bit about me. My name's Mark Mosley. I was in the Royal Engineers from 2009 to 2009, from 99 to 2009, 10 years. And when I left, I went straight into facilities management as an electrician and RAF base. I didn't know it was called facilities management. And then from there, I worked in private security for 6 years out in the Middle East. And then I fell back into working in facility management, owning a pest control company here in London. Also on the call, we've got Rich Garland, who is the account director or one of the account directors for Mighty. And for anyone who doesn't know, Mighty are one of the big players in our industry. The head office is in the Shard in London, and there's many veterans who work for Mighty, and Rich is one of them. He'll talk about that in a bit. Also on the call is Danielle, who is the membership officer at the Institute of Workplace Facility Management, also known as the IWFM. And Danielle will introduce you to the different qualifications and options available to help you get a leg up in this sector. Before we kick off, there is a chat box down there. If you've got any questions whatsoever, then just put them in the chat box. And then at the end, we're going to have a 15-minute Q&A and we'll be able to answer any of your questions. Also, this call is being recorded. I know you've got your cameras off and everyone's quiet. So if you don't obviously put your cameras on if you don't want to be recorded. That's something I was told to say. Okay, so let's kick off. Danielle, would you like to go to the first slide? Okay, so we have set up a veterans network in the IWFM, and the whole objective, as it states there, is to attract, support, and retain veterans, essentially. We see there's a huge crossover from working in the military and then working in facility management. It's like being in the military in these environments. I know probably some of you are getting out thinking, Christ, I want to get out of that environment, but it's such a rewarding place and there's so many opportunities and so many roles available you wouldn't believe. So like myself and Rich, we just fell into this industry and we see it as a good leg up to next career opportunities. About the next slide, please, Daniel. So this is the committee that we've set up. It was set up in 2003, and everyone here is either a veteran or a veteran or someone still serving. So as you can see, the woman in the top there, Louisa, she set up the IWFM committee for veterans in 2003. And if anyone's got any questions or anything after the call, then you can reach out to any of us in this group and we'll be able to do our best to help you on the next steps after your transition. I'm going to pass you on to Rich, who's going to talk about everything about facility management and what the opportunities there are for you going forward. Rich, let you go ahead, mate.
Thanks, Mark, and thanks to everyone for joining us this afternoon and taking up your valuable time. I'm not sure if I'm going to talk about everything facilities management, but I'll do my best to kind of form some kind of link and help everyone that's on the call understand what facilities management or workplace and facilities management is, what my experience is within that industry, and a bit about my story as well, I suppose. So myself, I was also in the Royal Engineers, so I served for just under 30 years. We're not both on here because we were Royal Engineers. It's just the way it kind of lands. But I left in 2015, so I've been out just shy of 10 years now. My kind of career as I know it now, was heavily biased towards facilities management, but much like Mark alluded to, I didn't actually know it was called that at the time. I started off as a young apprentice mechanical engineer, and moved into the kind of project environment and more into the built environment, and slowly but surely, built my career that way. And when I left, I just found myself naturally landing in an FM career. So that's how I got into it, really. I think an important note here as well is this is not a sales pitch in any kind of way. This is about informing you what the industry is and how you might find a place in it, and to give you some kind of top tips and pointers. Maybe that's what the intent of the next few slides is from me, anyway. So I'll let you read the slides as I talk through. But so what is workplace and what is facilities management? People typically, have heard of the phrase facilities management, but maybe not the workplace piece. So it is about the physical environment. So it's about buildings and grounds and estates and the like. But it's about much more than that, and that's where the workplace piece comes in, really. We could be talking about equipment and systems. We could be talking about how those environments operate and how the customer and the end users interact with that environment. The services that support the customer in delivering operations within those environments. But we're also talking about innovation and development of those environments, technology and advanced processes to enhance that customer experience. A lot of people are very much into things like energy and sustainability and the like, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But the list goes on. It's about the environment and how that interacts with the human workforce in whatever space we're talking about. It's a huge industry. I think at the last count when I looked, it makes up something like 12% of the entire UK working population. So that's a huge industry across the UK. What that looks like globally, I'm not entirely sure. And there's opportunities in there for everybody, if you feel that you can find a place for yourself in that, and that's what we're going to try and frame a little bit over the next few slides. So IWFM, Danielle's going to talk when I've finished in a little bit more depth about who we are and what we can do. But some of you might remember some references to BIFM, the British Institute of Facilities Management, as was. That changed back in, I think, late 2018, I think. So it's essentially the industry professional body, really, for the facilities management industry. And it covers things such as training, advice, guidance notes, policy documents, a lot on community networking, which is what we're talking about here with the Veterans and FM Committee, and lots of events as well. So some really useful information. And for those that are transitioning, getting involved in those networks and getting involved in those events is going to be key to your success, I would suggest. It also has a whole host of subcommittees. If you jump on the IWFM website, and I think it's under communities, I think, and there's an events tab in there. There's a committees kind of tab in there. There's a whole host of different committees. We're just one of those. So the Veterans and FM Committee is what we're talking about here. But there's a whole number of them, and they come together to to network and support each other, and in the veterans context is to try and foster some kind of link between yourselves and the FM industry as you go through that transition out of the military. There's a whole bunch of other networks, like I say, and they could be based on geographical regions, and some of those are overseas as well. But they could be based on certain aspects of professional life, or different technical disciplines. So you'll see a whole bunch of them in there, and you can go and have a look for yourselves and see which of those committees are of interest to you. So the next slide then, please, Danielle. So the FM market, what I want to try and do with this slide, really, and I'll let you read it again as I'm kind of talking about it. There's some particular terminology within the industry that it's probably worth talking about to try and frame where you feel you might land in the industry if that's a choice you decide to make. Hard services, some people would call it hard FM, sometimes it's categorized under the term estates. But essentially what we're talking about here is engineering and the technical aspect of what facilities management delivers in that built environment. So it could be, there's a list there. It could be about electrical or mechanical engineering, heat and ventilation. There's lighting listed on there, fire safety, a whole host of things. But it's typically those engineering and technical kind of roles that sit within that function. And as we go through the other categories in a second, what you have to remember is that you don't necessarily have to be a qualified engineer or a qualified technician to sit in that particular discipline, because there are a whole host of different support functions that enable those engineers to be successful in what they do. So you might find that you don't come from an electrical, mechanical kind of background, but you might find that you're a particularly good manager of people, or you're a good manager of process, or you're a good manager of projects, and they can very often land quite nicely into that category. And the same applies to the other categories as well. Moving on into soft services, you typically find that those are more people-based type functions. So you can find a lot of people operating within cleaning and security, and there's other ones listed there. The front of house, the people that front the kind of contract and the customer face, really, I suppose, is what we're talking about. So those are typically defined under soft services or soft FM. And then on the right-hand side, we've categorized this as add-on services, but it can be defined in a number of different ways. And they're typically a whole bunch of services that knit all those things together, depending on the contract that you're in. And again, there's some quite interesting ones in that list that a lot of people now find particularly interesting, like energy management, project management, and a lot of things like carbon reduction, renewable energy, those kinds of things would fall into that as well. And I think we typically find, or I certainly have typically found, that a lot of service leavers find themselves performing particularly well in those areas, because logic and structure and control and management of process is something that veterans do really, really well. Okay. So what you guys bring to the industry, I suppose. Sorry, Danny, I'll just back one. What you guys, finally on this slide, what you guys bring to the industry, I suppose, is that kind of hard-working ethic, reliability, integrity for sure, and just a general can-do attitude. If I was to kind of categorize it in one way, it's people who have the ability to spin a lot of plates and not get overly flustered when things get a little bit pressured or sometimes get a little bit chaotic, because the world of facilities management can sometimes get a little bit pressured and a little bit chaotic. Okay, but we typically find that veterans operate well in that space. Next slide, please. So I'm not going to kind of dwell too much on the detail of this slide. I think what this slide is trying to do is to show you how the FM industry is, in terms of it being very dynamic and a growth industry. It breaks it down into quite crude chunks. You can see the kind of groupings on the right-hand side where it says in-house, other contracted out, and total FM. That in-house piece is typically where businesses or organizations self-deliver within their own organizations, with their own people and their own equipment and services. They self-deliver their FM functions within their own business. At the bottom, you've got total FM, which is typically your larger companies. And Mark mentioned at the front end there, I work for Mighty, which is one of the largest companies in the UK that operates in the FM space. And we do total FM, so we might operate in some large facilities and operate a full suite of services to just allow the customer just to get on with the service that they deliver without having to worry about operating the premises that they work from. And then you've got the other stuff, and a lot of that is kind of a huge variation of specialised or group services that support those other two things, in many different ways. But collectively, what I'm trying to say here, and the important thing to take from this chart, is you're looking at, or you're considering, because you've joined this webinar, you're looking at an industry that is growing. It's never going to go away, and it'll certainly have to evolve to meet the ever-changing needs of the customer, and how they use and interact with their workplaces and the services that are required in those workplaces. So I think that's what this slide is trying to say. Next slide, please. So there's two kind of charts on here, and again, you can read into the numbers while I'm talking. So the chart on the left with, was there about a dozen or 15 little slide graphs on there. What that shows really is the variety of the scale of spend that exists in the industry. It's highly varied. You can see some of them are very low, sitting at that 0 to 99k mark, and right up. I think the highest one that's shown on there is 100 million plus. But it could be when it says 100 million plus, it could be much greater than that. I think at the last count, Mighty's kind of value is something like 5.5 billion. So you can have some quite big numbers in there. On the right hand side, the contracts can be very large, and they are definitely growing. But businesses are expecting to have to invest a lot more money in their people and their systems and the like that are delivering those services. And on the bottom right-hand corner there, again, referring back to those typical points of interest that we see quite often, sustainability, carbon reduction, renewable energy, and the like. It's a topic that a lot of service leaders are keen to engage in, it's happening now, and it's a daily topic of discussion. There's live projects ongoing as we speak that are pretty exciting. And I'm probably closer to the end of my career than I am the beginning of my career, and I have to learn every day to keep pace with that, and it's really interesting stuff. So I'm sure some of you would be interested in that kind of arena as well. Next slide, please. So I think what I'm trying to say on this slide is to tell you as potential employees within the FM sector is that sector is very definitely a forward-leaning one. It doesn't sit and relax and allow the world to pass it by, which is pretty exciting. There's always new technologies coming out, new processes, new ideas, and new people, which hopefully you guys will be part of that cohort. Customers are always looking for ways to innovate and improve and identify efficiencies or offer a better environment for their workforce, and the people they turn to advise them and deliver those transformative concepts are the facilities managers within those organizations, i.e. you guys, us. In the past, if you'd have said facilities manager, people would have talked about receptionists, cleaning, waste, bogs and bins as it was called, and it is about those two. Those do exist and they are important, but it's about much more than that. It's about everything that makes the environment function in the best way possible for the customer, and there's a lot to it. Okay, next slide, please. So a lot of you will be, depending on how close you are to your transition date, a lot of you will be, starting to focus at some point on the kinds of businesses that you want to go and be part of, and choosing the right business for you is absolutely critical to your success. This guide helps to frame what types of companies are out there and where they might sit in the big wide world of service delivery. Many of you would recognise some of those logos. You'll probably see them, floating around in your service establishments, or you might see them in the airport, or your children's schools, or in the hospital. They'll be all over the country. A lot of those logos are very well known. But I think it's important for you to find a business that suits you as a person as much as it does suit you as an employee and as an operator, as a technician, whatever it is you're bringing along. Though there are opportunities within all those organizations and many more, and they exist from small one-man self-employed business startups all the way to companies that employ many tens of thousands of people. Like I said, I work for Mighty. We employ something in the order of 72,000 employees, but I've also worked on contracts that employ less than 50 people, and they're all different, and the feel of those businesses is crucial in helping you to find a place in the industry once you've transitioned. So I think that's what that's trying to tell you. Okay, next slide, please, Danielle. So again, I'll let you read through this, but there's a few symbols on the bottom that start to frame how diverse the wider role of workplace and facilities management can be, really. It does cover health and safety, and I would probably suggest that everybody that comes from a service environment is more than well versed in health and safety, being ingrained in who they are and what they do. Procurement is about the commercial and the contracting process of delivering a product or a service to the workplace. It's buying things or buying services is what that really is. Risk is really important, and risk isn't just about physical risk. We could be talking about understanding commercial risk or contract risk or reputational risk, and all those things are quite different, really, when you leave the military. And I found that was a point of learning for me, is to understand different types of risk. I think all of us that leave the military understand physical risk and the like, but there's definitely a lot more that falls into that category. Business continuity is core to everything that I do in terms of the way I support the customer on the contracts that I lead on. And that's about making sure that when something goes wrong, when the power goes down, or the IT fails, or a building goes up in flames, or there's a national fuel strike, what do you do? What's the plan? How do you support the customer and working their way through that? Absolutely critical to the continuity of operations in that business. Sustainability, I'm sure we could probably run a series of webinars on that one and find quite a bit of interest in talking about that subject. Space planning, again, is about how do we maximize the spaces that we've got to make them the most efficient they can be. Energy is about, again, carbon reduction, energy reduction. How do we come up with innovative ways of maybe changing people's habits on how they use energy? How do we kind of reduce cost and the like? And then property and asset management. Asset management is really about understanding all of the bits and pieces that make up those buildings in kind of small detail, and managing the maintenance and the repair and the replacement of those things over time. So that's what our slide's kind of trying to say. But I think really, my role covers all of those touch points that show up on that slide. But if I was to boil it down for me, I'd probably say it comes down to three things, really. And the first one's about people. Veterans know how to manage people, but the diversity of the civilian sector is a different challenge. And I would say that about a third of my time is linked to people management in some form. But that's at the level that I operate at. The next point would be the customer, getting the service delivered to the customer in the right way is key to success, I think. Veterans often work in environments where multiple stakeholders have a voice, and that you will bring that to the party as a great strength if this is the industry you want to come into. And the final thing I think is plate spinning. I think that's where veterans really bring a value that is almost immeasurable, really. The ability to apply logic and structure in an environment that can often be disorganized, as I said before, that has got immense value. And if I bring a veteran onto my team, and I have done many times over the years, I kind of know that they're going to be strong in that area. So make sure you voice that and make sure you bring that as a strength is what I would say. What could I have done? Sorry, one more point before I go on to that slide, Danielle. What could I have done, I think, better if I was to go back to my transition period again to help me better prepare? And I think for me, it would probably be doing a little bit more work on my commercial acumen and my understanding of finance and commercials. I think that's probably the biggest learning point for me. 10 years in now, I consider myself to be pretty competent in that area, but every day I learn something new in that area. So that would be my top tip if I was going to transition into a managerial or leadership role outside of the military into FM, would be commercial, finance, contracts, those kinds of things. Next slide, please, Danielle. And this is my final slide. You'll be glad to hear. So veterans are generally pretty familiar with the NVQ type structure of educational levels, and those are kind of shown on the bottom, NVQ 2 through to NVQ 7. But don't feel as though your rank or your existing qualifications define your potential in the industry. I often find when I'm speaking to service leavers, through the CTP events and the like, that they often think that if you're a mid-manager in the military, you have to be a mid-manager when you leave. That is definitely not the case. But this gives you a bit of a kind of handrail as to the kinds of roles that might sit within those educational levels, really. But I'd say that, and again, you can read those to your heart's content. But I would say that I know of junior NCOs who are who are now out of the military and they're in senior executive roles, or they own their own businesses. Mark's on the call here. He's already told you that he now owns his own pest control business, and he left as a corporal from the Royal Engineers. So that's a pretty good success story. I know of many warrant officers who are enjoying themselves on shop floor jobs, and senior officers happy looking after really small teams, and many land in roles more naturally aligned to their service rank, and I probably put myself in that category. The point being, I think, really is there's an opportunity for everybody out there, and wherever you land, it's it's defined by you and not necessarily the rank that you leave the military with. So I think that's my snapshot. I think a bit of a slide to kind of transition across to Danielle, who's going to speak to you in a second. So where do you go to get some advice from here? I suppose you're going to get a copy of these slides sent to you after this webinar anyway. So there's a few kind of employment communities out there. There's ones, lots of them on LinkedIn if you're not on LinkedIn, but things like Job Oppo, Forces Employment Charity, loads and loads of them. I'd suggest you probably just find a few that feel right for you and get involved and start to network. The idea of WFM is a key one, I think, and use the networks, use the subcommittees. If this particular one, the Veterans and FM Committee, is for you, then great, we'd welcome you on board. We'd love to see you get involved. But there are other ones as well that might be suited to what you're looking to achieve. And you can get advice from a whole bunch of people that sit within those networks, whether it's the committee members as themselves. There's a list there who we represent. There's some big players there, Mighty, Sodexo, etc. And we've got people on the team that come from specialist FM recruitment businesses as well. If you fancy getting into pest control, Mark's your man. So there's plenty of advice that we can dish out there. Look out for employers specifically with the military covenant pledge, the bronze, silver, gold kind of employee recognition scheme. That's quite important. It gives you a flavour for how much support and how much commitment that business will potentially give you as a veteran rather than just an employee. I'm sure Danielle will talk about the next part as well, about how IWFM itself, rather than just the subcommittee that we're talking about, can provide some help. And I think at the bottom, it's all about networking. And I don't know how far away each of you is from your actual transition date, from your departure date from the military, but it's never too late to start networking. Get involved. It's quite a challenging process when you first get into it, walking into a room, walking up to people you don't know, shaking hands and introducing yourself is not a natural thing initially, but it pays off. So that's what I would say. Network. Very often it's who you know, not what you know. And yeah, good luck, I would say. Good luck. So that's all I've got to say. Danielle, over to you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Rich. So, hi everyone, and thank you so much for joining today. I'm here to talk to you a bit about how IWFM could potentially support you if you were to choose to go down this avenue, and you'd look to the support of your professional body and what we can actually offer you. So, as Rich and Mark have said, we're the professional body for people in facilities management, and we are there to be able to support you with your professional development, any sort of qualifications or training that you're looking to do, and just give you up-to-date guidance and support so that you're able to perform your roles. That is what our role is to make sure that you can deliver. We do also offer a discounted rate for some of our products and services, especially for veterans. So if you are interested, you can reach out to me or my team and we'll be able to support you with that as well. So what I'm going to do is just give you a little bit of a background around the membership side, and what it means to be a member, and also what the benefits would be if you were to become a member of IWFM. So the screen you can see now is what we call our professional pathway, and it's linked to one of the slides that Rich talked through earlier with the different job titles. But so you can see here we've got the different levels of qualifications, and what that is then relating to is to the different membership grades. So this is to sort of give you an example, but everyone is going to be different. Everyone's going to have different levels of experience, and we would treat everyone on an individual basis. So I'll give you an overview of what each of these grades mean. So the first one we've got on here is our affiliate, and the affiliate product is for people who are just starting out. They want the information from us, but they might not necessarily have any experience, or they want to start off slowly before they start into the professional grades of membership. And then as you go up the pathway, these are what are called our professional grades of membership. To start off with, we've got our associate grade of membership, which is also linked to either a level 2 or 3 qualification. And this would be someone who is either in a support or supervisory role. Then we've got our member grade, and this is for people who are actually starting to become more senior within their role. So they've taken on a more managerial responsibility, and these are linked to a level 4 and 5 qualification. And you can see there the job title example is an FM manager. So with this one, the criteria would be that you have some form of managerial experience to achieve your member grade status. And then we've got our certified. So our certified is realistically what everyone's working towards up this pathway. And these are people who are senior. They have achieved quite a lot over their career. They've got very expansive knowledge, or they may also hold a level 6 and 7 degree as well. The criteria around that would be that they either hold that qualification or they can demonstrate it through a competency-based assessment that they have met that seniority within their skill set. Then lastly, we have our fellow grade, and our fellow grade is our most prestigious grade. This is for people who have made a real impact on the FM profession and can demonstrate that and are really looking to give back into the FM profession. So these are for people who are looking to sort of mentor people who are now coming into FM, being able to support the professional body as well. So a lot of our fellows give back into the professional body with their knowledge and their competencies as well. So in terms of what it means to become a member of IWFM, so a lot of people come to us for those professional grades of membership, because what that means is you will get your post-nominals, and the post-nominals are that sort of signifier that you have achieved that level of competence that that professional grade of membership gives you. So it's really a big significance for people within the industry to say that you're working at that level and that your professional body has recognised that you're working at that level. It can help you with things like career advancement as well. A lot of employers are looking for you to have that recognition with a professional body. So having those post-nominals will allow you to do that as well. And it builds that trust and credibility that you've also been assessed by your professional body and that they've recognised that you are working at that level. And it gives you a competitive edge in the job market as well. So it's allowing you to sort of stand out from the crowd, if you like, to say that you've met those criteria and that you are working at that level. So just to give you a flavour of what the offer is for veterans with IWFM. So you can see we've got this table here and we've got the two columns. So the column 1 where it says affiliate membership is that sort of entry level that I spoke about. And you can see there the benefits that you would get with that. So you do get access to information. So you'll get access to all the networking and the information provided by our community groups. You will also get a discount on all our training courses and access to our Facilitate magazine. On the other column there, you've got our professional memberships. This is anyone who comes in at an associate to a fellow grade, and you will get access to all those other membership benefits. So these are things like our mentoring program. So you can either become a mentor or a mentee through that. You have the use of the post-nominal letters. You'll also get the Facilitate magazine in print, and you will also have the full access to our resources. So online, anything that we publish, you will have access to. So there is a discount on this. So again, like I said, when we circulate these slides, all the information will be in there and the details of my team will be on there. So if you do want to have a chat about any of this, you can do, and our details are on here as well. So just on, and again, I know Rich and Mark have sort of alluded to this, but this is just a bit around our community groups. So becoming part of the IWFM community means that you will be enrolled into, first of all, a regional group. And that regional group is just based on where you live or where your primary address is, because some people like to use their work address. And that will give you access to that regional group's events, all their updates, all of that kind of stuff. But then we also have our special interest group. So the veterans being one of those. So that is part of our special interests. But we also have other ones, as Rich mentioned earlier on. So there's quite a varied set of groups here that, depending on what role you decide to go in and what your interests are, there may be a different group in there for you as well that you can get access to information from them. You can speak to people within that community group for our community groups forum, and you can also attend their networking events. And you can see the pictures here are some of the networking events that people have hosted in the past. And it is also an opportunity, if you want to actually volunteer yourselves, because if there's information and knowledge you'd like to share, by all means, you can join those groups and be able to give back in that way as well. So just in terms of the professional development, so as I said, this is a main reason of why we exist as a professional body. We really want to be able to help and guide people with their careers and whatever their professional development goals are. So in terms of what we can actually offer in terms of this, we've got things around our CPD, which is the most vital thing, and being able to, for people to be able to develop that and show that as well. So it is really key for people to be able to document their CPD. We have a CPD tool within our website that people can update. If anyone's like me, I get to the end of the year when I get to an appraisal with my manager and I can't remember half of what I've done in that year. So actually being able to document that through a CPD tool is really helpful. But through other things, we've got all our networking opportunities, which all have CPD activities linked to them. So again, the volunteers are really great at putting on events that actually help people and develop them in terms of their professional development. We're always putting out regulatory compliance information, and that is again a CPD requirement for our members. So there's some really good opportunities in here in terms of development and CPD opportunities that you can go away and have a look at as well. So we also have our RWFM training, which is we have our actual RWFM Academy. So we provide short courses through that, as well as our qualifications. But this can be another way for you to develop your skills and also develop in the areas that you want to develop into. So there's a range of courses on there, and again they are split out into the different levels that you may be working at and the areas that you want to develop into. But we've got some examples on the screen that you can see here. So we've got things like our Intro to Facilities Management course. So that is a 3-day course that covers quite a wide variety of subjects. But it's that sort of introductory flavour, gives you an overview of everything. And then you've got more specialised ones. So you've got building safety, property management, compliance, health and safety. But then you've got ones in leadership as well, contract management. So depending on where you want to develop, there would be a course if there is something that would interest you in there. We also have the two that are on the screen here. These are the upcoming ones. So if anyone is particularly interested, these are the ones that are coming up. So we've got our Intro to Facilities Management course that's being held on the 14th to the 16th of May. And then we've got the NEBOSH, the General Certificate in Occupational Health and Safety, and that is being held on the 12th of June to the 31st of July, the exam being taken place on the 6th of August. But again, the information that's on the screen is just a little bit of an overview of what would be involved in those, and if there's something in there that particularly interests you, again, you can reach out to the team and they'll be happy to talk you through anything if there's any questions around any of the courses or any of the information that you would be needed to provide as part of those. We all have our e-learning courses as well. So if you can't actually attend the actual training courses themselves, you can do it by e-learning. The difference being is obviously just being self-motivated and being able to go in and complete the course. You wouldn't have someone tutoring you through that. With the other courses, obviously they're usually 3 days maximum, but you have an actual trainer there to talk you through everything. With the e-learning, it would be, I think it's 120 days access you get to these, and you would go on and complete the course yourself. But it's all the same information, but it's just not having a trainer to talk you through or any of that. But you can obviously access it anywhere at any time. You can work it around your work schedules rather than having to take 3 days out. So it's another alternative if you are looking to develop in that area. And just another little tidbit, we've just launched the Tech Survival Guide. So these are actually mini bite-sized courses. So again, some of the feedback we've had from people is that they don't want the really long courses. They want to be able to access information in kind of small bite-sized chunks. So there are 3 episodes in this. You can see the prices there at the bottom. But again, if you are looking to develop in some of these skills, you want quite quick, easy to access information. This is all online as well. You can access that as well. I think that's it from me. So I'm going to pass back to Mark, and he's up for any questions.
Thanks, Danielle. I just want to reiterate that, yeah, there's a huge crossover between the military and going into this sector. And, you know, I've got friends who one left the parachute regiment as a sergeant, and he's now the head facility management of Chelsea Football Club, looks after the training ground, looks after the stadium. Another friend of mine left as a WO1. He's now a big player at Gatwick. So yeah, many friends are in this industry. Not that you know, when they go into it, they know what they're in the industry. Sorry. So yes, that's the big one, and then just the networking side of what Rich said. One of the guys who was on our committee, he joined the committee when it first started. He didn't have a job at the time, and now he's been posted out to the Ascension Islands, probably enjoying the nice sunshine for 2 years. So it's all about the network and who you speak at these events and try and get to as many as possible. And yes, I see from Philip Cousins there. I just wonder if there's any spaces on the committee. Yeah, reach out to us. We're always looking for new people. And yeah, like off the back of that other guy, there's jobs that come with the back of it of meeting some of us. So is there any other questions that anyone's got that they would like to put forward, either in the chat or just come on now that we'll try and answer? If not, we might be able to move on to the next slide then, Danielle. If you have got any questions, then please reach out to the IWFM Veterans Group, and we'll do our best to answer them. And yes, is there another slide, Danielle, with some
There is another slide, but for some reason it won't let me go forward, unfortunately.
QR codes and things?
Yeah. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that.
No worries. Yeah, so if you want to scan them QR codes and things, that's obviously the IWFM Veterans in FM network, and that will bring you to us if you have got any questions. Rich, have you got anything else to add?
I don't think so. You know, it's just about giving you guys a flavour of what the industry offers, really. And you know, if anybody wants to reach out via LinkedIn, and you know, I think you know, all of us would be more than happy to to join in that conversation, give you any advice we can. Really, I can see that Ben was stalking me while I was talking there. So yeah, if you want to reach out, Ben, and have a chat, then happy to do that.
Danielle?
Brilliant. Yeah, just again to just reiterate, if you do want to have a conversation with us at IWFM as well, our contact details are on the page. But please feel free to reach out and we'll be happy to support and help. Thank you.
Thanks again, everyone, for taking the time out your busy days. And I hope it's been useful. I know it's a lot of information, but yeah, it's a huge sector and they're crying out for people. So hopefully this has been useful. And like I say, get in touch and we'll do our best to help as best we can. Cheers.
Thanks.
Thank you.